If you thought this saga had finally cooled off, think again. This is Hood Files, where secrets don't just leak, they explode. And tonight's headline hit harder than anyone was ready for. Chrisean Rock and Pooh Shiesty stepped out for what was supposed to be just another night party. Lights low, cameras flashing, vibes on display. But before the night was over, it turned into pure chaos. Because out of nowhere, a familiar face walked in, a face from the past, Kianti. And the moment she locked eyes with Chrisean, everything changed. The internet couldn't believe it. And trust me, you won't either. Witnesses say words were exchanged. Energy shifted. Security tensed up. And then, boom, an alleged attack that nobody saw coming. Phones came out. Stories started flying. And Pooh Shiesty? Sources say he snapped. So ask yourself this. If you were in that room, same past, same pressure, same spotlight, what would you do? Because comments started pouring in fast. This was bound to happen. Nah, this is beyond messy. Somebody set this up. But here's the thing. This wasn't just a random outburst. This was history crashing into the present. And once you hear what really led up to that night, trust me, it gets uglier. The night didn't begin with shouting or chaos. It started quietly, almost deceptively normal, the way dangerous stories always do. According to multiple online accounts, Chrisean Rock and Pooh Shiesty walked into that night party already under pressure, even if the cameras didn't show it yet. The internet had been watching them closely for days. Every step, every post, every silence had been dissected. So when they appeared together in public, people didn't see a couple stepping out for fun. They saw a statement, a message, a response without words. And here's the thing most people missed. This wasn't just a party. It was the first time they'd been seen together in a setting where the past couldn't be edited out. No controlled lives, no captions, no comments turned off. Just music, bodies, energy, and unresolved history sharing the same space. According to chatter from people claiming to be inside the venue, the mood was tense long before anything actually happened. Not loud tense, quiet tense. The kind where people keep glancing over their shoulders. The kind where smiles look practiced instead of natural. Chrisean, by most accounts, didn't look rattled. She looked guarded, different from the chaotic image people were used to. Less explosive, more contained. Some fans online would later say she looked like someone bracing for impact rather than chasing attention. Pooh Shiesty, on the other hand, was reportedly more alert than usual. Not aggressive, just aware, watching who was watching. Because when your name has been attached to controversy, every room becomes a potential trap. What many didn't know at the time was that this night wasn't happening in a vacuum. It was sitting on top of years of unresolved narratives, whispered timelines, and relationships that never got proper endings. And one of those endings had a name that hadn't been trending yet, a name that would change the temperature of the entire room within minutes. According to multiple unverified posts that surfaced afterward, Kianti arrived separately. No entourage announcement, no dramatic entrance, just presence. And sometimes presence is louder than any headline. People who claim they recognized her say the shift was immediate. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Phones came out, but discreetly, because everyone in that space understood one thing instantly. This wasn't coincidence. This was collision. Online, Kianti had always existed in the background of the Pooh Shiesty narrative. Rarely loud, rarely visible, but always referenced. Commenters had mentioned her for years, often linking her to deeper emotional ties and unresolved questions that never quite disappeared. Especially after rumors involving a child circulated online. Never confirmed, never fully denied, just floating there, heavy enough to matter. So when she walked into that same space, the story stopped being theoretical. It became physical, not violent yet, just unavoidable. Sources claiming to have been nearby say Kianti noticed Chrisean almost immediately, and Chrisean noticed her right back. There was no dramatic stare down, at least not at first, just a moment of recognition. The kind where both people know exactly who the other is without introductions. That moment alone, according to online witnesses, changed everything. Because from that point on, the night stopped moving forward and started folding inward on itself. Some accounts say there were words exchanged. Others say it was body language that did the talking. A step too close, a look held too long, a sentence spoken just loud enough to be heard. The internet would later argue endlessly about who said what first, but a common thread across almost every retelling was this: whatever was said, it wasn't playful, it wasn't accidental, and it wasn't small. What makes this moment more explosive is that it didn't happen in isolation. It happened under the weight of everything that had already been said online. Every rumor, every comment, every theory people had been throwing around suddenly had faces attached to them in the same room. And when narratives collide like that, restraint becomes fragile. People close to the situation, or at least claiming to be, would later suggest that Kianti wasn't reacting to the party itself. She was reacting to weeks of buildup, to seeing someone publicly positioned in a role she believed had context missing, to watching her past get rewritten in real time without her voice included. And when someone feels erased, the response is rarely calm. According to widely shared but unverified accounts, the situation escalated fast, not with screaming, not with theatrics, but with motion. A sudden move forward, security shifting, people stepping back instinctively, the way crowds do when they sense something tipping over. And that's when everything crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Social media would later explode with claims that Kianti attacked Chrisean. The word attack did a lot of work online. Some described it as physical, others as confrontational, others as an attempted lunge that was stopped before it fully landed. No clear footage surfaced. No clean video went viral. Just fragments of stories stitched together by panic and speculation. But what mattered wasn't the exact mechanics. It was a reaction. Because according to nearly every version of the story, Pooh Shiesty snapped. Not in a cinematic way, not flipping tables, but in that raw, instinctive way that happens when control slips for a half-second. Witnesses claim his demeanor changed immediately. Calm replaced by fury. Distance replaced by movement. And in that moment, the entire room reportedly locked onto him. Because whatever had just happened between the two women, everyone understood the next move would define the night. Security intervened quickly, according to accounts. People were separated, voices raised, music drowned out. And just like that, the party that had started as a public appearance turned into a story nobody could put back in the bottle. Phones were already uploading. Texts were already being sent. You won't believe what just happened. Messages spread faster than facts. But here's where part one truly matters. Because what happened in that room wasn't the scandal. It was a spark. The Rayall story lived in what came before. The emotional landmines, the unresolved history, the quiet resentment. And once those collided in public, there was no version of the night that ended clean. Because while people online were arguing about who was wrong and who was justified, the truth was simpler and uglier. This night wasn't about a party. It was about pressure finally finding a place to escape. And once it did, everyone involved became part of a narrative they could no longer control. But what came next, even his enemies didn't expect. The aftermath didn't wait for confirmation. It never does. By the time the night party cleared and people spilled back onto sidewalks and timelines, the story had already escaped its original shape. According to online chatter, phones were buzzing before cars even left the block. Half-formed versions of the same event raced across group chats, each retelling sharper than the last. And as always, the internet chose the loudest version. Within hours, blogs began posting headlines that read like verdicts instead of questions. Names were bolded. Words like attack, meltdown, and snap did the heavy lifting. No footage needed. The algorithm had enough. And at the center of it all were Chrisean Rock, Pooh Shiesty, and Kianti, locked into a triangle the internet had been sketching for years. Anonymous accounts claiming to be close to the scene started posting details. Some said Kianti had been holding things in for weeks. Others claimed Chrisean knew she'd be there and went anyway. A few insisted the entire situation was bait. None of it came with proof. All of it came with confidence. And confidence is contagious online. Within minutes, reaction channels were live. Thumbnails already finished. opinions already locked. One widely shared thread claimed the confrontation had nothing to do with the party at all. According to that version, the real trigger was the optics. Seeing Chrisean publicly positioned beside Pooh, framed as something permanent, something official, allegedly flipped a switch. The post read like confession, without admitting to anything, ending with the line, "Imagine watching your past get replaced in real time." That sentence alone fueled thousands of reposts. Then came the screenshots, blurry, cropped, and conveniently missing timestamps. Alleged DMs surfaced, attributed to burner accounts. One message claimed Kianti had warned people days earlier that if she crossed paths with Chrisean, it wouldn't be peaceful. Another claimed Pooh had been advised to avoid public appearances altogether. No verification, no source names, just enough plausibility to spread. And the sarcasm followed immediately, because nothing calms the internet like a serious situation. Comments piled up. So we skipping closure and going straight to confrontation? Crazy how everyone ends up in the same room eventually. One viral reply summed it up with surgical cruelty. "This is what happens when the past never gets an ending." It was reposted thousands of times, detached from context, treated like prophecy. As the noise grew, so did the claims. A blog alleged security footage existed. Another claimed lawyers had already been contacted. A third insisted the incident would trigger legal consequences. None of it confirmed, but each rumor fed the next. And once the word investigation entered conversation, even hypothetically, the tone shifted, the joke slowed, the takes got colder. Pooh Shiesty's reaction became the focal point. According to multiple accounts, he didn't just get angry, he got protective. Not loud, not performative. Focused. The kind of response that reads differently depending on who's watching. Some framed it as loyalty, others as volatility. Reaction channels split the difference and monetized both. Chrisean, meanwhile, didn't immediately respond. No long post. No clarifying live. Just absence. And absence, in a moment like this, becomes a canvas. Fans filled it with theories. Some said she was shaken. Others said she was done entertaining chaos. A few insisted the silence meant something bigger was coming. Because when someone known for reacting doesn't react, people assume strategy. Kianti's name began trending in pockets, not everywhere at once. It wasn't a spike. It was a creep. Old posts resurfaced. Past captions reinterpreted. Fans pulled archived comments and built timelines that stretched years back, connecting dots that may or may not have ever belonged together. And the most dangerous part was how convincing it all looked when laid out side by side. Reaction channels leaned into the psychology. This isn't about one night, one host said. This is about unresolved history colliding with public pressure. That clip circulated widely. Another creator argued the opposite. Nah, this was inevitable. You can't put these people in the same space and expect peace. Both narratives gained traction. Neither required proof. Then came the alleged voice notes. Short clips distorted, claimed to be from people present. One described shouting. Another described security pulling people apart. A third claimed Pooh had to be restrained. Again, nothing verified. But the emotional detail did its job. Listeners filled in the visuals themselves. The internet's favorite move followed next. Moral alignment. Fans chose sides quickly. Some defended Chrisean, arguing that no one deserves to be confronted publicly. Others sympathized with Kianti, framing her reaction as a result of being erased. A smaller but louder group criticized Pooh, saying his inability to manage his past had finally caught up with him. And just like that, the story stopped being about what happened and became about what it represented. Private accounts began posting cryptic messages. Truth always comes out. Y'all don't know half of it. This isn't over. None of them named names. All of them implied proximity. Screenshots of these posts spread faster than the originals, stripped of context, amplified by speculation. Then the narrative darkened. Some bloggers suggested the incident could affect future appearances. Others hinted at contractual consequences. One even floated the idea of settlements being discussed. No evidence, just escalation. And escalation is the internet's favorite genre. Through it all, one thing stood out. Nobody denied anything. Not directly. No clean statements. No hard pushback. Just distance. And distance in a scandal feels like oxygen. It allows every theory to breathe. Fans started asking why no one was correcting the record if the story was wrong. And when that question goes unanswered long enough, people assume the silence is intentional. By the next day, the incident had become shorthand. That night, the party. People referenced it without explanation, as if everyone already knew. And in a way, they did. The facts didn't matter anymore. The feeling did. The sense that something had finally snapped into place. Because what unfolded wasn't just a confrontation. It was a reckoning. A public collision between past and present. Broadcast through fragments and framed by outrage. And just when it seemed like the story had reached its loudest point, a new whisper surfaced. A name mentioned in passing. A detail that didn't fit. A suggestion that this wasn't the final version of events. And just when we thought it was over, another name came up. The days after the night party felt heavier than the night itself. The noise didn't disappear. It reorganized. It slowed down, deepened, and spread into places where outrage usually doesn't reach. According to online chatter, everyone involved moved differently once the adrenaline wore off. No victory laps. No celebratory posts. Just distance. And distance in a scandal like this is rarely accidental. Chrisean Rock stayed mostly offline. When she did resurface, it wasn't with explanations or defenses. It was subtle. A repost, a like, a short caption that didn't mention the incident at all. Fans read into every pixel. Some said she looked drained. Others said she looked relieved. A few insisted the calm was performative, the calm of someone holding the door shut while chaos bangs from the other side. And when someone known for emotional volatility suddenly goes quiet, people don't assume peace. They assume damage control. Meanwhile, Pooh Shiesty became the most discussed presence without actually being present. His name trended in cycles, usually attached to speculation rather than statements. Some claimed he was furious behind the scenes. Others said he was being advised to say nothing at all. The internet debated whether silence meant guilt, maturity, or strategy. None of those interpretations came from him. They came from a vacuum he left behind. And then there was Kianti, whose role in the story shifted from spark to symbol. In the days that followed, she didn't capitalize on attention. No interviews, no tell-alls, no monetized outrage. That absence complicated the narrative even more. Because when someone doesn't chase the spotlight after being placed at the center of a scandal, it disrupts expectations. People began asking whether the confrontation had already cost her more than it gave her. Anonymous posts started framing the night as emotional fallout rather than aggression. A few threads argued that what happened wasn't about jealousy or control, but grief. The grief of watching a shared history be overwritten publicly. The grief of seeing a narrative conclude without your consent. Those takes didn't go as viral as the dramatic ones, but they lingered longer, quietly reshaping how some viewers interpreted the chaos. As the weeks progressed, the tone online shifted again. The outrage cooled into concern. Comment sections that once joked about messy timelines started sounding uneasy. This feels darker than entertainment. Nobody wins here. This is exhausting to watch. When the audience starts expressing fatigue instead of excitement, it usually means the spectacle has crossed into something heavier. Speculation about consequences followed naturally. Would there be legal fallout? Would venues tighten security around appearances? Would brands distance themselves quietly? Bloggers floated hypotheticals with confidence. None confirmed. All amplified. And even without official consequences, reputational damage has a way of sticking where paperwork never does. People also began re-examining the lead-up, the warning signs that seemed obvious only in hindsight, the way tension had been building long before the party. The online remarks that now read like foreshadowing. Fans replayed old clips, dissecting facial expressions and tone, looking for clues they believed they'd missed. In reality, they were searching for comfort in pattern recognition, proof that chaos follows rules. The strangest shift came when empathy entered the conversation. Not loudly, not universally, but enough to be noticeable. Some viewers started acknowledging the human cost of living inside an algorithm-fed trial. Imagine never getting to make mistakes privately. Imagine every argument turning into content. Those comments didn't trend, but they changed the mood. Because once people start seeing participants as people instead of characters, the entertainment value drops. Behind the scenes, according to unverified whispers, opportunities stalled, meetings postponed, collaborations paused. The phrase, "let's revisit this later," reportedly became common. Whether true or not, the idea stuck. Because silence doesn't just protect, it isolates. And isolation can be louder than backlash. Then came the final twist. Not a reveal, not a confrontation, an absence. Days passed without escalation. No new leaks, no surprise live streams, no explosive responses. The internet waited, refreshing feeds like gamblers watching a stalled roulette wheel. And when nothing happened, discomfort set in, because unresolved stories refused to end cleanly. Some fans framed the quiet as growth. Others called it retreat. A few insisted it was survival. The truth, as always, sat somewhere between interpretation and reality. And reality rarely announces itself online. The incident faded from trending lists, replaced by the next scandal, the next outrage, the next distraction. But fading doesn't mean disappearing. Search results linger. Clips resurface. References resurface. And every time one of their names trends again, this night will be part of the context, whether anyone wants it to be or not. What remains most unsettling isn't who did what or who reacted how. It's how quickly private emotion became public spectacle, how easily pain turned into content, how fast the internet moved from curiosity to condemnation without ever slowing down to verify, and how silence, once again, became the loudest voice in the room. Because in the end, this wasn't about a party or a confrontation. It was about what happens when unresolved history walks into a spotlight that never turns off, when pressure meets exposure, when narratives collide without mercy. She vanished without a trace, but the secret stayed. Now here's where you come in, because stories like this don't end when the cameras turn off. They end when the audience decides what they believe. Think about everything that just unfolded. A night that was supposed to be ordinary turned into a collision of past, pressure, and unresolved emotion. No clean answers. No official explanations. Just silence, speculation, and people left to pick sides without ever seeing the full picture. And that raises a bigger question than any headline ever could. Was this a moment of emotional breakdown or the inevitable result of years of unfinished business? Was it anger exploding in public or pain that never got space to exist privately? And when silence follows chaos, is that strength, strategy, or survival? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The internet doesn't wait for facts. It reacts to feelings. And once a narrative takes hold, it doesn't need confirmation to cause damage. It just needs momentum. We've seen it before. Private lives dragged into public trials. Rumors elevated to reality. And people judged long before the dust ever settles. So now we want to hear from you. What do you really think happened that night? Do you believe this was unavoidable or could it have been handled differently? And if you were in their position, same history, same pressure, same spotlight, would you have stayed silent or spoken up? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Read what others are saying. Challenge each other respectfully, because the best conversations don't happen in headlines. They happen right here. And make sure you hit that subscribe button, because this story is far from over. We're watching every move, every silence, every shift in energy that doesn't make the blogs yet. When the next update drops, when the next twist surfaces, you'll want to be here before the narrative gets rewritten again. This is Hood Files, where we don't rush to judge, but we never stop watching. Stay locked in.